לקראת שבת נלכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מחזה במצ'ת תהילה. לך אדוני, לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Stand up if you're able, the last verse. Boim Shalom Herrera, Am Besimcha Utzala, Tov Herrera, Am Sedula, Boim Kala, Boim Kala, Lecha Adoni, Lecha Adoni Lekra Kala, Elei Shabbat Lekavela, Lecha Adoni Lekra Kala, Elei Shabbat Lekavela, Lecha Adoni Lekra Kala, Elei Shabbat Let's turn now to the words of the Chatzi Kaddish, the half Kaddish. We're on page 144 in our Sidurim. Yitkadal v'yitkadal shemei Rabba, ve'amar yivrak chirutei yamlich malchutei, v'chayei chor muv yomechor, uvchayei lechol Beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, ubizman kariv, v'imeru amen. Yeshmer Rabba mevarach, le'olam u'na'al Alma yitbarach, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shemei d'kudusha b'rechum. Lela ממקום ברכתה ושירתה, קדוש וחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה, וימרו אמן. We turn the page, we continue with the Baruch Hu, the call to worship. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMvorach, Baruch Adonai HaMvorach, Leolam Vaed. Let's read together in the middle of 148, the first blessing. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Sebaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Amariv Aravim. The second blessing, Ahavat Olam, chanted by our Cantor. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael, Amechavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadta.
נצליח בחוקך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך, לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ואורך ימינו, ובהם נהנה יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה.
We continue with the words of Shema Yisrael. We're on 152 in the prayer book.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
Let's be seated, please. We continue, as we always do, with the words from the Ahavta from Deuteronomy chapter 6. We're on 154. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha v'lechtecha v'derech v'shachbecha v'kumecha v'kshartam lehot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha v'utatam al mezuzot beitecha v'yisharecha l'man tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. On 157 together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. So we're singing Mi Chamocha, page 158. Let's turn to the Hashkivenu, this beautiful blessing that we recite on Shabbat evening, to ask God for protection, for relief, for succor, to protect us against famine and sorrow, the dever that we encounter now, and deliver us, for God is a gracious, merciful, a God full of rachamim, of compassion. We'll read together in the middle of page 160. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace. Raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel for your name's sake. Be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and our coming to life and peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporeh sukkah shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. The 7 blessings that are the essential portion of the Shabbat evening prayers. We're on page 164 in our Siddurim. And if you're able, please stand and we'll sing together with our Cantor, beginning with Adonai Sivatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha.
Adonai Sevatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei
top of the page. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Let's all be seated.
Amen.
We'll continue with the fourth blessing on 173 in your Siddurim, top of the page. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. The fifth blessing is the Ritzeh, this magnificent prayer and with beautiful musical arrangement. Our Cantor is going to chant the Ritzeh for us. We're on page 174 in the Siddur.
Ritzeh, Ritzeh, Ritzeh Adonai Eloheinu, be'amecha Yisrael, u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel, u'tehi leratzon tamid, u'tehi leratzon tamid, avodat Yisrael amecha, el karov lechol korav, el karov lechol korav, penei el avadecha vechanemu. Baruch atah Adonai, sheotecha levadecha, be'ir anavod, sheotecha levadecha, be'ir anavod.
Let's continue with the prayer for Thanksgiving. We're on 176 in our prayer books, the Modim Anachnu Lach, page 176. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, that all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God. Your name is goodness. You are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, atov shimcha, u'lecha na'el lehodot. We come to the beautiful words of Shalom Rav. In Hebrew and English, we're on page 178.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha, Nasim Leolam.
So we have a marvelous Shabbat this day, and because this year, the lunar year, is only 12 months, we have to read 2 parashiot this Sabbath. In other words, we're reading 2 full Torah portions this day. The first one, as you know, is called Achrei Mot, which means after the death of Aaron's sons. And the second one we know very well because it's called Kedoshim, from the word Kadosh, which means holy or holiness. And chapter 19 is probably the pinnacle or the essence of our teaching in Torah about moral and ethical responsibilities as Jews towards one another, towards the community, towards the world. But it begins in chapter 16. The Torah begins this week in chapter 16 with mention of Nadav and Avihu, who in some mysterious, almost mystical way died. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. And then goes on to talk about Aaron's responsibilities to cleanse himself and cleanse the whole congregation and ask God for atonement for the whole congregation. What is part of that cleansing process? Well, you've probably heard of the phrase, Lech Lazazel, the goat of Azazel. Go off into the wilderness like this goat. What does that mean? The word Azazel is a very unusual noun, found only infrequently in Tanakh. And it's not the name of an animal. It comes from the word which means to remove, to be completely removed. In other words, when the animal is sent off into the wilderness, symbolically, the sins of the community are completely removed. They're transposed onto that animal, and that animal goes off into another world and dies. And in a sense, that the body of that creature is expiation for the sins of the people of Israel. So that's where we get this phrase, the goat of Azazel. Go off to Azazel. Has other connotations as well. So I want to talk for a moment about what does it mean to live fully? Because, as I said, the Torah portion begins with a remembrance of the death of Nadav and Avihu. The rabbis say that this was a miraculous demise. They say their souls were consumed, but their bodies remained intact. It's a hard phrase to swallow. Their souls, so to speak, were taken away from them, but their bodies were still there. In other words, they didn't die because of physical destruction or burning up of their flesh. What I want to make the parallel or the parable that sometimes when we're physically alive and well, we're spiritually dead. There's something missing inside of us. There's some inner core that's not flaming, it's not bursting with energy and looking out towards the real world. Nowadays, we've seen a plethora of books written about what happens to a person after he or she dies. Is the soul immortal? There's a long discussion that Maimonides has in his treatise on resurrection about the idea that the soul goes into another world, ultimately will go into the world to come. But in our day-to-day world, people are always asking, and they've asked you and probably asked me as well many times, what happens to us after we die? Is there some spirit that continues in the world, wherever that world may be? Are we truly alive, or are we just a biological, material being that at the moment of death disappears? It's a big question, and if you want to read on about, I'm happy to refer to you a couple of new books that have been done in the last 5 or 6 years. So let me give you an example. The famous novelist Sinclair Lewis was known as a great atheist. He really believed that there was nothing out there except human beings, and that was that. He engaged one day in a public dispute. This is probably almost 100 years ago in Kansas City. Some people challenged him about the idea that God does exist. So he finished his presentation in front of this huge crowd of people and said, "If there is a God, Let that God strike me down dead right now. So he stood on the platform for another 2 or 3 minutes. Nothing happened. He walked off triumphantly and said, I proved to you, God does not exist. The following morning in the Kansas City Times, in the newspaper, they printed a rebuttal, an editorial rebuttal to the actions of Sinclair Lewis. And they said, of course, God didn't strike down Lewis dead because God doesn't perform miracles on the spot. You know, we don't put the coin in the candy machine, pull the lever, and suddenly things happen. They said rather, his spiritual demise has been evident for years and years and years. What they were trying to say in this editorial was that Sinclair Lewis's cynicism, his overwhelming egotism, his belief in his great literary powers was so extraordinary that he didn't even realize there was something beyond himself. He was so caught up in himself and his own ego needs that he forgot that there might be something greater in his individual personality. So when you think about it in the Jewish context, there's a blessing that grandparents are supposed to give their children, their grandchildren, say, may you live all the days of your life. May you live all the days of your life, which means really, from the Hebrew, that you have to make every day count, that you have to live fully every day of our lives. That means to live with a heart that's alive, with compassion, with a sense of friendship, with a sense of enthusiasm, and even with a growing sense of appreciating the beauty of the world. You know, we're in this difficult time, as we've all been thinking about, but every time I look out on outside the sanctuary here on our property at Beit Tikva, I see the blooming of buds, I see the rebirth of spring, I see the leaves of the trees flowering and growing every single day. We have to nourish ourselves, we have to hold on to the fellowship that we cherish, and we have to be devoted to life, devoted to the truth and the integrity of life. Because without a spiritual core, without that life essence, without that candle of the Lord within ourselves, we're just like Sinclair Lewis. We're just caught up in our own stuff, in our own ego. To live every day then is terribly important, and it's really the essence of the Torah portion this week. At the end of Ephraim, in chapter 18, it says, you shall therefore keep my statutes, meaning God's statutes, and my ordinances, my teachings, which if a person does, he shall live by them. I am the Lord. The famous phrase in Torah is, v'chai bechem, you shall live by them. In other words, the mitzvot, the commandments were given to us to live, to make happen, literally to make real in our own lives. They weren't given to us as punishment. Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to protect yourself, watch out for this, that, and the other. The mitzvahs were given to us to live by them, to live through them, to make our lives full. And to remember that every day is a gift, even the days that we're feeling sad or depressed, whatever it may be, they are still a gift. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So let's sing the blessing for all of our loved ones and friends and people around this world and in our congregation who need an extra boost. Refuah Shlema, may they be blessed, may they be healed, may they be strengthened this day and every day in the coming week. The Misha Barak is on page 371. Before we sing with our Cantor, let's think of some of our congregants who can surely benefit from our extra blessings. Thinking of
Shmupalu Lynn Kelly, she'll be in the hospital for another week. Flo Vinnick.
And Reggie Klein, Joan Scheinberg. Any others you could name? Bonnie Cantor. All those throughout our country in need of strength and healing, and hopefully recovering from this terrible virus that we're all encountering. Page 371.
Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha imotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We want to thank our congregants, Alma Dankoff, for the wonderful music, Windy Dankoff as well. Of course, our Cantor, and our videographer is Lela Dawkins. If you would like to join us for Torah study on Shabbat morning, we start at 9:30. Just have to get onto Zoom or send me an email to let me know that you would like to join us, and we will bring you into cyberspace. Any other announcements? Just a reminder, because we send out this wonderful e-blast every week, thanks to Windy and Alma. If you need help, assistance with getting groceries, going to the pharmacy to get medications, whatever you may need, please call us at the office or call me, and we will do our best to be your chauffeur service and obtain whatever it is you need. Not everyone needs to run to the store, and not all of us have the energy or the strength to be going to the store right now, nor should we. So please call upon us, and we will help you, whatever this special errand may be. Let's go to our closing prayers on page 586. We all stand up, if possible, for the Aleinu. The words are at the bottom of page 586.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצון, ולא שמרנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא סתום חלקנו כהם, וגאור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Let's turn to a meditation before the Kaddish prayer. We are on page 592. Let's read this poem together. When I die and give what's left of me away to children and old men and wait to die, and if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than the words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at At least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So all that's left of me is love. Give me away. On this Sabbath, we recall during this period of Shloshim, Rena Freelo, dear friend of Reggie Klein, and Edwin Fields. And on this, their yahrzeit memorial with love and devotion, we now remember Christopher Stafford Gobi, husband of Elsie Harta Gobi, Gerald Gerfan, Bessie Hartman, grandmother of Sonny Rappaport, Bert Herdig, the father of Doreen Herdig, Nathan Rubenstein, uncle of Barb Lamont, and Mauve Greenbaum, dear friend of mine. Any other yardsticks? Please turn with us to the Kaddish prayer. You'll find it on page 598, and we'll read the Kaddish together. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbah, v'yamad yivrach chirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yom echon, v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agala b'zman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach, l'olam ha'amei ha'maya. Yitvarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shemei l'kudusha b'richu, Lela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechmata, ta'ayam v'yama v'imru, amen. Yehesh lama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, v'imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. I wanted to be by this beautiful table that was set up by Alma Dankoff, with the beautiful flowers and the challah and the wine. So, the Kiddush can be found on page 123 in our prayer books. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava u'ratzon, hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh bereshit. כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר לציאת מצרים. קיוונו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים. בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. אמן.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.